Let's talk about one of the most stubborn economic questions out there, the gender pay gap. It's a topic that's surrounded by endless debate, but what does the actual data tell us? Well, today we're going to dig into it.
It's a real head-scratcher, right? I mean, we've had decades of progress. Women are often outpacing men when it comes to education, so why do they still, on average, earn less? Well, the answer is way more complex and surprising than you might think, and it took a Nobel Prize-winning economist to finally crack the case.
You see, to solve this modern mystery, you can't just look at today's numbers. You have to go back in time. You have to be a detective, sifting through 200 years of evidence and following the clues. And that is exactly what one incredible economist did for her entire career.
And that historical detective? Her name is Claudia Goldin. In 2023, she won the Nobel Prize in Economics for this very research. The Nobel Committee put it perfectly. She didn't just study women's work, she fundamentally advanced our entire understanding of it. So, let's put on our own detective hats and follow Goldin's investigation. We're going to trace the clues she uncovered to get to the bottom of this thing once and for all. So the very first major clue Goldin found totally flips what most of us think on its head. We have this idea that women's journey in the workforce has been this long, slow, steady climb, right? But what she discovered is that's not the real story at all. The real story is so much more dramatic. And that leads us to her first absolutely game-changing breakthrough. She discovered that over the last 200 years, women's participation in the economy wasn't a straight line. It's a U-shape. So let's break down what that actually means.
Okay, think of it in three big phases. First, you have the agrarian era. Before factories, the home and the workplace were basically the same place, the family farm, a small shop, and women were right in the thick of it. Then, bam, the Industrial Revolution hits. Work moves to factories, creating a huge separation between home and work. And that's when married women's participation just plummets. Then finally, in the 20th century, you have the rise of the office, the service economy. And that creates brand new opportunities, and participation begins that steady, powerful climb back up.
And when you actually see the data she dug up, wow, it is striking. Goldin's painstaking research revealed this incredible U-shaped curve. High participation, a massive drop, and then an even more powerful resurgence. This discovery alone literally rewrote economic history books. But it also raised the next massive question. What on earth powered that huge, modern surge back into the workforce?
And that question brings us to the next big piece of the puzzle. Goldin identified this profound shift in the 20th century. It wasn't loud, it wasn't flashy, it happened quietly, in the background, and it changed absolutely everything. She gave it a name, the Quiet Revolution. This wasn't a single event. It was a slow, gradual transformation in what women expected for themselves. For the first time, young women started to see their future not just through the lens of marriage and kids, but also through a career and identity outside the home. A huge shift. But what made it possible?
Goldin's research pointed to one single technological innovation as the main catalyst. It wasn't a new law, it wasn't a social movement that lit the fuse, it was something much, much smaller. The contraceptive pill. It sounds simple, but its economic impact was just massive.
You can see how this set off an incredible domino effect. For the very first time, the pill gave women reliable control over when they had kids. This new ability to plan ahead meant they could delay marriage and make these huge long-term investments in themselves, like going to law school or medical school. And that access to education, well, that opened the door to demanding, high-paying careers, which over time completely reshaped what society expected women could do.
Okay, so we've traced the U-shaped history and we've seen the quiet revolution. Women are more educated, more career-focused than ever. Which brings us right back to our central mystery. Why does the pay gap still exist? This is where Goldin's detective work uncovers its final and most important clue.
And the clue is this brilliant concept that Goldin calls greedy work. Now, these aren't bad jobs. In fact, they're often the highest paying jobs in fields like finance, law, consulting, you name it. They're greedy for your time. They demand long, unpredictable hours, and they pay a huge premium for your constant on-call availability.
Let's make this super concrete. Think about a pharmacist. Their job is flexible because the hours are predictable. If one person can't make a shift, another pharmacist can easily step in. The system values the work itself. Now compare that to a corporate lawyer working on a massive deal. They have to be available 24/7. The company is paying a massive premium for that specific person to be ready to jump at a moment's notice.
And here it is. This is where the whole puzzle just snaps into place. Goldin's data shows that the pay gap between men and women is actually pretty small when they're young. But it explodes after the birth of the first child. At that moment, many couples face a brutal economic choice. To maximize their family's income, it often makes sense for one parent to take that greedy, high-paying job, while the other steps into a more flexible but lower-paying role to handle childcare. Golden calls this couples inequity. And because of history and culture, it's overwhelmingly women who step onto that more flexible, less paid path. So, after this incredible 200-year journey through economic history, what did our detective find? Well, she didn't just solve a puzzle, she gave all of us a brand new way to see our entire modern economy.
So let's just recap the huge discoveries she made. First, women's economic progress is not a straight line. It's that dramatic U-shape. Second, a single piece of technology, the pill, had absolutely revolutionary economic consequences. And third, the pay gap today isn't really about old-school discrimination anymore. It's about the very structure of our highest-paying jobs and the insane price our economy puts on total inflexibility.
And, as Golden herself says, you have to call the problem by its right name if you ever hope to solve it. Her work completely shifts the conversation. The big takeaway here is that the final hurdle for pay equity isn't just about demanding equal pay for equal work. It's about changing the nature of greedy work itself and making flexibility less expensive for everyone, men and women.
And that leaves all of us with a really provocative question. Now that we know that the structure of work is the main problem, what does a future with real equity even look like? What choices are we going to make as companies, as a society, and as individuals now that we can finally see the problem for what it really is?